There is a particular kind of emotional trap that does not look dangerous at first. It feels like chemistry. It feels like mystery. It feels like intensity. But over time, it begins to feel like confusion, self-doubt, and emotional starvation. This is the trap of avoidant attachment, and many people do not realize they are inside it until they are already deeply invested. One of the first signs you are falling into this trap is that you are constantly trying to decode mixed signals. One day they are warm, attentive, and present. The next day they are distant, distracted, or suddenly busy. You find yourself replaying conversations, analyzing tone, rereading messages, searching for reassurance between the lines. Instead of feeling secure, you feel like you are solving a puzzle. Healthy love does not require constant interpretation. And when you are in the avoidant trap, clarity is replaced by ambiguity, and ambiguity becomes addictive. Another sign is that you begin lowering your standards slowly and almost invisibly. At the beginning, you may have wanted consistency, communication, and emotional availability. But as the relationship progresses, you start telling yourself that you are asking for too much. You rationalize their distance. You explain away their withdrawal. You become grateful for crumbs of affection because they feel rare and therefore valuable. This is not love growing. This is your nervous system adjusting to unpredictability. You may also notice that your self-worth becomes tied to their responsiveness. When they lean in, you feel chosen. When they pull away, you feel inadequate. You start believing that if you were more attractive, more patient, less emotional, or more independent, they would stay closer. This is one of the most painful distortions that occurs in the avoidant dynamic. Their distance begins to feel like a reflection of your value. In reality, their withdrawal is usually a reflection of their internal regulation, not your desirability. A deeper sign is that you feel anxious in ways that do not feel like you. Perhaps you used to feel relatively secure in relationships, but with this person, you are hyper-aware. You check your phone more often. You hesitate before expressing needs. You worry about coming on too strong. The avoidant trap can activate anxiety even in people who normally feel balanced. When intimacy increases, the avoidant system often pulls back. That pullback triggers pursuit. The more you pursue, the more they distance. And this cycle can become intoxicating because the reconciliation moments feel intense. But intensity is not the same as intimacy. Another indicator is that important conversations never seem to fully land. When you try to discuss the relationship, they may intellectualize, deflect, or minimize. They might say they need space without defining what that means. They might insist they care but avoid concrete commitment. You leave conversations feeling partially heard but not reassured. There is movement but no real progress. Over time, you may begin censoring yourself to avoid rocking the boat. You choose short-term harmony over long-term clarity. Pay attention to how conflict is handled. In secure relationships, conflict can be uncomfortable, but it leads to repair. In the avoidant trap, conflict often leads to shutdown. Emotional distance increases, communication decreases. You may feel like you are the only one pushing for resolution. Eventually, you may start suppressing your feelings to avoid triggering withdrawal. When you are afraid that expressing hurt will cause someone to disappear, you are no longer relating from security. There is also a subtler sign that many overlook. You start romanticizing their potential more than experiencing their reality. You tell yourself that if they just heal, if they just open up, if they just commit, everything would be perfect. You become attached to who they could be rather than who they are consistently showing themselves to be. Hope becomes the glue that keeps you in place. But hope without evidence can become self-abandonment. The avoidant trap often creates a push and pull dynamic that feels passionate. And when they return after distance, the relief feels euphoric. You interpret that relief as proof of deep love. In truth, it is often the nervous system calming down after a threat response. The reunion feels powerful because you were deprived. This intermittent reinforcement can bond you more strongly than steady affection ever could. That does not mean it is healthy. It means it is psychologically potent. You may also notice that you begin shrinking parts of yourself. Perhaps you stop asking for reassurance. Perhaps you downplay your desire for commitment. Perhaps you act more independent than you feel because you sense that neediness will push them away. Over time, you lose touch with your own relational voice. You are no longer showing up as your full self. You are adapting to survive the dynamic. And another clear sign is that you feel alone even when you are technically together. There is physical presence but emotional distance. Conversations may stay on the surface. Vulnerability may be limited. You sense there is more depth available, but it is rarely accessed. You feel like you are standing outside a door that only occasionally opens. You wait for the moments of closeness and endure the stretches of detachment. It is important to understand that avoidant individuals are not villains. Many learned early that closeness was unsafe or overwhelming. Their nervous systems equate intimacy with loss of control. When relationships deepen, their protective strategies activate. They may focus on flaws, question compatibility, or convince themselves they need freedom. These strategies once kept them safe, but in adult relationships, they can create confusion and pain. However, understanding their history does not mean accepting chronic inconsistency. Compassion must include yourself. If you constantly feel anxious, uncertain, and undernourished, your body is signaling something important. Healthy attachment does not feel like walking on eggshells. It does not require you to suppress needs in order to keep someone from leaving. One of the most revealing questions you can ask yourself is this: do I feel more secure in myself since being in this relationship or less? Secure love tends to expand your sense of self. Even when there are challenges, there is a baseline of trust. In the avoidant trap, you often feel smaller. You second-guess your perceptions. You doubt your expectations. You wonder if wanting consistency is unreasonable. There is also the issue of accountability. When patterns are gently pointed out, does the person show willingness to reflect and adjust? Or do they retreat further, blame circumstances, or suggest you are too demanding? Growth requires awareness and effort. Without that, the dynamic tends to repeat. If you recognize these signs, the path forward is not to force change or intensify pursuit. The more you chase, the more the avoidance system can feel pressured. Instead, begin by returning to yourself. Reconnect with your needs without shame. Clarify what consistency and intimacy mean to you. Communicate from steadiness rather than panic, and observe the response. Sometimes when one partner moves towards security, the dynamic shifts. Space becomes less threatening. Closeness becomes less charged. But sometimes, your groundedness reveals that the other person is not ready for the depth you seek. Both outcomes offer clarity. The trap of avoidant attachment is powerful because it keeps you focused on earning love rather than receiving it. It convinces you that if you just say the right thing, give enough space, or prove your worth, the distance will disappear. Real connection does not require you to audition for stability. It is built by two people who can tolerate closeness without fleeing and conflict without shutting down. If you find yourself constantly waiting for someone to come closer while you hold your breath, pause. Ask yourself whether you are loving freely or bracing for withdrawal. Ask whether you are growing or shrinking. Love should stretch you, but it should not erode you. When intimacy is healthy, it feels grounding even when it is vulnerable. When it is a trap, it feels like chasing warmth that never quite stays.